Good morning, Christmas Eve. Good morning, Christmas Eve. Good morning, Christmas Eve. All right, let's get down to brass tacks here on the Spaniard Show with AMXbooks 641. It was a great weekend. We soaked in some holly jolly New York City Christmas yesterday. My daughter and I went with my family, and it was tremendy. It was tremendy. It's a good time. All right, excited. I think tonight was last night. So this is the last morning that old Illy the Elf will be here in the Brenneman household. And then Illy is going to go back to the North Pole and report on one little Gracie June Brenneman and Rocky Lewis Brenneman, and let old St. Nick know that the Brenneman kids have earned their Christmas. I want to throw this out there too. Last year at this time, no wait, 12 hours from now, so, well, whatever, midnight of tonight into Christmas, last year, I was down here in the basement, you know, getting some things ready, and I felt, I don't feel so well. So this is kind of a little bit grody Christmas story, but whatever, it's a Christmas story. And I was sitting down here getting ready for the Navidad, and I thought, I don't feel well. I sure don't feel well. And if you remember last Christmas, if you've been following along since then, you know exactly what I'm going to say. So I thought, you're fine, dude. You're fine. Go pull the trigger. Carry on. You're fine. Except I wasn't fine. And then Rocky in the middle of the night wasn't fine. And then Gracie in the morning wasn't fine. And then Amanda a little bit later in the morning wasn't fine. So we had a terrible Christmas last year. So fingers crossed. It's 6:51 on Christmas Eve morning. Fingers crossed it won't strike again. Let's get down to brass tacks with AMXbooks 641. And I am, Dred, you and I discussed this a little bit. I am going to have tomorrow morning AMX Miss 1 and AMX Miss Kids 1 or AMX Kids Miss 1. Which should it be? AMX Miss Kids 1 or AMX Kids Miss 1? AMX Miss Kids 1 or AMX Kids Miss 1. This is going to be AMX Miss 1. That one will be AMX Kids Miss 1. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. All right. Let's rock and roll. Dred. So spell that out exactly how you want it to be, Dred. All right. And I have a special message. A special message that's going to come straight from the heart. Now, Pritch, how should I do the kids one? How should I do the kids one? AMX Kids Miss or AMX Miss Kids? Straight from the heart. Straight from the heart, that one's going to come. All right. Let's rock and roll with AMXbooks 641. 1, 2, 3. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the Spaniard Show. This is the Spaniard, the extra holly jolly Spaniard on Christmas Eve, and this is AMXbooks 641. The book we're reading is Meat Eater by Steve Rinella. Remember, Rinella is a professional hunter. He's a conservationist. He's also a conversationalist. He's a philosopher. He's a cook. He's a thinker. He's a dreamer and a doer. He's all these things put into one. And for that, he fascinates me. He's also a man who grew up with heroes, and then get this. He made his life according to the heroes he had. Mountain men, trappers, hunters, they were bigger than life. Daniel Boone, all these historical figures, they were bigger than life. So he created a life that followed in their footsteps. So this book, like I said, this is his explanation of why he hunts. It's something that doesn't make sense to everybody. Coming from his perspective. And we have an assignment here today, but this is coming from his perspective on why he hunts. He's telling a story about coming up on a herd of caribou when he's running low on food. And he's alert, right? He's low on food. He's alert. He can't find any caribou. He says this, quote, "I was hungry in the woods, and here came a few tons worth of caribou. There is no time for emotional dawdling. It is a time for unerring judgment. It is a time for speed, both mental and physical. Time for action and precision and discipline. What millions of years worth of evolution built us to do. And in the act of doing it, this is where it gives me chills, right? This is where it strikes my soul. And in the act of doing it, you experience the unconfused purity of being a human predator stripped of everything that is non-essential. In that moment of impending violence and death, you are gifted a beautiful glimpse of life. So to me, I read this, right? And it's chilling, it's intense. Some people think it's straight wrong, right? But it reminds me of fighting. The primacy of fighting. Look, I didn't start fighting because of that primacy, but I learned through fighting that primacy, that idea of being stripped of everything that is non-essential. Look, when they shut the cage door and the camera's in your face and Bruce Buffer says your name and they say your opponent's name and he says fight, that's it. Everything that is non-essential is stripped away. There is nothing else that matters when Eric Silva or Anthony Johnson or Johnny Hendricks or whomever, John Howard is coming straight at me wanting to take my head off. Everything that is non-essential is stripped. In that moment, right, whether you want to call it being in the moment, in the zone, flow, whatever it is, fight or flight, if we're going back through time, right, fight or flight, that's it. And that primacy and that love of fighting, that zero non-essentials. How many times, how often are you involved in something in which you're stripped of zero non-essentials? It reminds me of Mike Ritland. So Mike Ritland, gosh, I love that guy. You know, he's a Navy SEAL. He's a canine dog trainer, military, working dogs, service dogs. And I remember I had him on my show. I read his book. I listened to his podcast. He was fascinated with the potential, right? The potential of these dogs. And that's how I am. When I look at a human or I look at you and I look at me, and it doesn't even have to be that we're fist fighting or we're hunting. Just your human potential. How far can you go? How much can you get out of yourself? How much pain can you withstand and keep moving forward and take something from it and be better on the other side of it? That to me is what I'm absolutely fascinated about. And that to me is what connects me to Rinella and his quest in hunting. And there were some stats that he mentioned in the book that I thought were pretty impressive. And this book is probably, I don't know, 2-3 years old maybe. But at that time, it was 5% of Americans hunt, right? So 5% of Americans hunt, and that was down from 7% a decade prior. And he said there's more golfers than hunters in the U.S. Now, here's kind of the assignment. I'm going to throw two things at you that are, one, an assignment, and two, it'll get you thinking, some reflective thinking. So, quote, perhaps more troubling than the overall decline of Americans is the overall increase in Americans who are uneasy with hunting. Approximately 1/5, listen to this, 1/5 of people in the U.S. are outright opposed to hunting. So wherever you stand on this issue, right, wherever you stand on this idea of hunting, here's the assignment. However you feel, okay, if you think this is wrong, this is terrible, this is bad, they're killing animals, no, okay, if that's how you feel, or if you think, no, that's how I eat, that's how I provide for my family, or if you're thinking, no, it's a passion of mine, I love doing it. However you feel, right, articulate it to another person clearly and with reason, right? So however you feel, it doesn't matter what spectrum you're on, articulate it clearly and with reason to another person why you feel that way. He goes on to mention that this debate is as old as the Bible. There's a story in the Bible, but I think it's really, really, really stinking important, right? However you feel, everything is so polarized, right? If you say this thing, you're this, or if you say this thing, you're that. It's so polarized. How about we clearly think, clearly articulate in our minds, and then have it come out our mouth how we feel and why we feel that way. Start here and now with this hunting scenario. And then moving on, this is like some reflective thinking. And I put everything out there and I figure, you know what? If you're your honest self, as per Mr. Rogers, the best gift you can give anybody is a gift of your honest self, then at the end of the day, it'll buff out. It'll be okay. If it comes from your heart, if it comes from your soul. So I want to talk a little bit. I've become interested in anthropology and history, people, behaviors, ancient societies, tribes, cultures, how they act, why they act, weaponry, over time, how it's evolved. I've become really interested in all that stuff. And religion and beliefs, it can be a sticky topic. And I remember I was reading, this is real, right? It's coming from the heart. I remember reading Neil deGrasse Tyson's Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. And I remember talking about the Big Bang being, dinosaurs being 65 million years ago. And I think the Big Bang was like 4.8 billion years ago. And I remember saying to Dred, wait a minute. If you believe in the Big Bang, does that mean you don't believe in evolution? Does that mean you don't believe in Christianity? What does that mean? And I remember we had to talk about it. And I started doing a little bit of listening and Googling and research. And then I've heard different people say different things. But there's I've heard this several times, right? That there's a largely agreed upon theory that humans evolved in Africa. okay, and through the Bering Land Bridge. They traveled from, up, down in Africa, up through Europe and Asia, and then across through Siberia, into Alaska, down, that's a theory, okay? But the point here is this. I'm figuring out my beliefs, and I'm reading these books, and I'm saying things coming from these books, and I talked to Dredd about it the other day. I said, how do I do this? Like, I don't even know. Like, it makes you question what you think. It makes you question your beliefs. Not question, it makes you examine, right? And he suggests, he said, a healthy thing for you to do is read from the perspective of the book, and then you'll figure it out, right? This is being brought to you. I'm presenting something to you. This book is presenting something to me, and I think it's up to us to rationally, objectively think through this stuff out loud in front of a camera, hopefully not regrettably so, or in your mind, or talk to it with a person. But I thought it was really interesting to read that it's generally agreed upon that modern humans emerged in Africa less than 100,000 years ago. How that meshes with Catholicism, how that meshes with the Big Bang and with evolution, I truly don't know, but I think it's on us, you and me. It's up to us to figure this stuff out and think through it, rather than just being, boom, I feel this way, nothing's going to change my mind. This has been AMXbooks 641. Merry Christmas Eve, my friends. My website, charliespaniard.com, has got everything I'm doing. If you want to support the show for as little as $1 a month, you can go to patreon.com/charliespaniard. See you tomorrow on Christmas, folks. All right, my friends, that's it. Start thinking, start talking. I will see you tomorrow on Christmas for AMXbooks. Maybe, or just AMX's. I don't even know, but I will be here live in person tomorrow morning on Christmas, Eastern Standard Time, United States of America. See you, folks.